This entitled religious couple are trying to force a homeless lady to carry their baby. And just when she thinks that she's broken free, they get their whole church to hunt down this poor lady. Happy birthday, today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. So, a little backstory. I was basically homeless for a while because of some issues I'd rather not talk about. I'm completely safe now, but during my time in a homeless program, I met a couple of people who were very religious. They were very sweet to me and are not the problem of this story at all. But they used to take me to church, and it was okay for the most part. Note that I am not Christian myself. This will come up later. There I met some of their friends, including a couple. We'll call them Martha and John, who had tried for years to have children. IVF, adoption, you name it, they've apparently tried it. They wanted a baby, specifically. Nothing stuck. Eventually they just gave up. Or at least that's what they said. Fast forward a little bit, and I got an offer to live with family for a while. So I moved where they were. During this time, I got a new number, which I did give to the couple who had showed me so much kindness, but did not give it out to anyone else from that area. Well, earlier this year, I'm pulling into a parking spot at my local Target when my phone rings. I put my car in park and check the new message I had just received. Turns out it was Martha, and the message was her basically saying, "Hi, is this OP?" I didn't want to be rude, so I just said something along the lines of, "Yes, this is OP," and just left it at that because I thought it was weird that she had my number and I was wondering what she wanted. I get out of my car to do my shopping, and had just found what I was looking for when my phone starts going off several times. The messages went like this: "As devout believers, we know that God has a plan for each and every one of us. Sometimes he puts people in our lives as an answer to our prayers. OP, as you know, John and I have tried for almost 10 years to have a baby, and while we have had many heartbreaks, we always held fast to our faith and believed that God would answer our prayers in his own time. John and I believe that our prayers were answered when we met you. If you would agree to be our donor and surrogate, we would be more than happy to offer you a home during the pregnancies. All we ask is that you follow certain guidelines during the time you are carrying out children." Then she sent a list of these guidelines, which I don't really feel like posting right now. I'm pretty much just shell-shocked in the middle of the shampoo aisle because WTF did I just read, and don't respond for a minute, so she keeps sending me messages like, "We would like to move you into a spare room sometime this month, so we can start your treatments immediately," and clarifying that I'll need to sign a contract for each pregnancy. I eventually just messaged back with a simple, "I'm sorry, but I'm not interested." I don't feel like that was rude at all, but she got ticked and basically gave me the typical bingo of, "How selfish can you be?" So I blocked her. And that was that, right? Wrong. So I get my freaking hair care products and a few other things and get to the checkout line when my phone starts blowing up. The cashier even made a comment on how someone really wanted to get in touch with me. Guys, it was basically the whole church, or at least all of that very, very large friend group. Apparently Martha had messaged a group chat or something. That is the only way I could see them all getting my number that fast. To give them my number and tell them that I had turned down her and John's proposal that the whole group had apparently discussed. Or at least that's what I got from the messages that I read. My phone got so many messages it seized a few times. I ended up having to get a new number again, but that was my experience with baby crazy religious people. I should note that I personally love children, but I'm sitting on the fence about being child free because of an issue that my doctor is worried will harm me should I ever get pregnant. These people apparently knew this from the couple I was friends with, so not only was I not a real candidate because I never carried a baby to term, I also have an issue that could put me at risk during childbirth, but they still assumed I'd do it to get a roof over my head. I think that's the craziest part of this story, is they thought so little of this person that instead of just offering her a place to stay, they were basically like, well, she's desperate for a place to live, so let's use that to our advantage. And you know what? If you actually went to her humbly from the start and asked her, "Hey, is this something you'd like to do?" Because there are people who actually get paid to be surrogates. You never know, she might have said yes. Here's the cast, because today's show involves more people. D, my 3-year-old student. EM, entitled Mum. Chinese national, very traditional and stubborn. ED, entitled Dad. Local, very much a liar. SA, school admin. And the poor bloke that got pulled into this unintentionally. CW1 and 2, my co-workers. CW1 is the manager of the outlet, while CW2 is a no-nonsense type lady. They're both very nice in general, but not so much to parents, who try to exploit their newer staff. Me, the clown that had to entertain EM and ED. Here we go again. First things first, EM and ED show up 10 minutes late with D. I know this, and that EM and ED are both liars, because I come in and out of the classroom every minute or two to check if my students are here, usually starting this routine about 5 minutes before class begins. Some parents like to drop their kids off early, so I rather be there to take them into my care if they show up a few minutes early. When EM, ED, and D finally show up, D just starts to take off his shoes, gets his temperature taken, and receives some hand sanitizer from SA. This is all important because it proves why EM and ED are liars. SA is always outside at the front desk to receive students. He'll bring students in if the teacher inside is preparing for class or tending to another student, since we're not allowed to leave any kid alone at any given point. If D had shown up on time, SA would have brought him into my class, assuming I wasn't outside. He would have also done the temperature check and hand sanitizer when they showed up, and not 10 minutes late. This proves to me that they were indeed late. ED, EM, and I didn't regard each other much as I took D into my care. I just had him say bye-bye to his parents, a little trick I used to reinforce that now is class time. D follows me in, his parents leave, and all is good. I go about my class, teaching D the letter F. I know, make your F word jokes. I must admit, the number of times I thought F stands for F me is a lot more than none. D's writing and coloring has improved a lot since my last post. I taught him the command push hard when he holds a crayon, so he uses some strength when writing and coloring. He was able to do his writing and very aggressively colored a fish, even though I tried to convince him to color the fox, French fries, and frog in his book. He didn't touch any of the other drawings. His reading and pronunciation of words was roughly the same. He could say fox and fish, but not French fries or frog. I don't expect much. Consonant blending is something we usually teach 4 to 5-year-olds instead, and the FR sound can be pretty tough for a lot of young kids, especially those who don't grow up in an English-speaking household. Overall, the lesson was fun, and he could even show me how a frog hops and how a fox sneaks around the forest. Heck comes when class is over. The school has a policy where even if the student comes late, lessons end on time. You do not get an extension to ensure that your child has a full hour class. If you're late, it's your problem. You do not get to push back other students' classes or the teacher's plans after work because you couldn't show up on time. I helped D pack up and take him outside 5 minutes before his lessons end. A protocol that gives the teacher time to talk to the parents and give feedback. When his parents aren't there, I suspect they're going to come late again, as they pulled the exact same thing last week, where they dropped D off late and came back late, holding me back from clocking out. CW2 is outside at the front desk as well, sending a kid off with his parents. When she's done, I casually mention that I'm probably going to be stuck outside for another 15 minutes. Wish I could go back inside. I'm probably gonna be stuck out here for a while. What? Why? Isn't your lesson over? Yeah, but D's parents are probably gonna come pick him up late. They did the exact same thing last week, come 15 minutes late for class, and thought I'd give them the full hour lesson. That's not right. Let me call them. You don't need to extend the class because they're late. CW2 calls ED and lets him know that class is over and I'm waiting with D. When she's done with the call, she mentions to me that ED claimed they weren't late and that I was the one who was late in receiving them. CW2 already suspects they're lying since she knows I check outside for my students before my class even begins, and tells me that if they try to keep me, to mention that I have another online class that I need to go to, so they better get lost. CW2 goes back in and I keep waiting. 10 minutes later, ED and EM show up. D runs to them and gives EM a hug, while I start to speak to ED. I'm going to give the lesson report so I can just finish up and go home, when he cuts me off. Hi sir, sorry about calling you. So today D learned—
Hey, what was this about being late for class? We weren't late, we were standing right here. You were the one who were late in receiving us.
I'm sorry sir. I've been coming in and out every minute or so since 5 minutes before class began, to check if you were here. I never saw you. I apologize if you were perhaps further down and I did not see you.
This is ridiculous. We were standing here. No one came to receive us.
Sir, I can assure you I was coming in and out and checking frequently. I did not see any of you out here on time. At this point, SA is coming back from buying his lunch. ED stops him, and SA looks very confused. Note that SA's lunch begins halfway through my lesson, so he was definitely at the front desk before when my lesson began.
Hey you saw us standing here, right? We were here on time. The teacher failed to come receive us on time.
Sorry sir, I didn't see any of you. I would have brought your child in if OP wasn't outside to receive you. Sorry, I need to eat. SA excuses himself from the inferno. I'm desperately wanting to raise against these fools. I want to just move past it, give the lesson report and go home. But ED decides he's not done.
He has no idea what he's talking about. It was another guy who saw us then.
Sir, he's the only male staff we have on Saturday. It couldn't have been another male staff behind the counter, but it's okay. I apologize. It's on me this time. I must have missed you if you were here on time. Anyway, here's the lesson report. I deliver my report showing ED that D could write and was more enthusiastic in his coloring. ED notices that none of the other pictures are colored except for the fish.
Why didn't he color them?
I repeatedly asked him to color, but he just kept coming back to the fish. This isn't a bad thing. It just shows that he has an interest in one thing over another. He was also able to write better, even though I still have to push down his hand and guide him in using more strength when writing. I show ED the book and mention that it isn't finished, because I tried to focus more on arts and craft to see if D would catch on to that. I made him a paper circlet with fox ears he colored in and was wearing. Us teachers don't have to make our students finish the book, since it is our discretion as to how fast the class should go. Most parents prefer it so they can see that something was accomplished, but most parents understand when we explain that they weren't into it that day. ED has very little reaction, so I continue and mention that the lesson reports are now all digital. We used to use a hard copy, a sheet of paper we ticked off and had the parents keep. However, we've since decided to switch to our online reports, so it's all done on an iPad on our teacher's portal, and the parents are emailed a copy. As I'm clicking around on the iPad and filling out my report, EM buzzes over to me and gets uncomfortably close behind me. She's leaning over my shoulder to see what I'm doing, though I'm pretty sure it was useless because she couldn't read English. I also have no idea why she wanted to lean so far over me. It's not like I'm tall. I'm 159 centimeters, 5'2", and she's at least 167 centimeters, 5'6", in heels, so there was really no reason for her to peer over my shoulder like that. Once I'm done with the report, I turn the iPad around in my hand so ED can read it. Instead of just reading it, he grabs the iPad out of my hands instead, almost making me drop the book and flashcards I was also holding. EM snorts in contempt as I quickly grab D's stuff so nothing would fall. Once ED is done reading the report, he shoves it back in my face so I can submit it. I pretend to be cordial, say goodbye, give D a genuine wave and high five, and head back inside to grab my stuff and go home. I would have just left right there and then, but SA asked me what was up and had to fill him in. I relayed the entire crap show to him and he laughs, though he mentions EM and ED were probably lying about being on time. I mentioned that it isn't the first time they've done it, but the conversation moves along to other things unrelated to EM and ED. About 5 minutes after I go back inside, I say goodbye to SA and leave the room so I can head back to my classroom. Pack pack up for the next teacher, and scram. When I open the door, I'm face to face with EM. We're inside the school area, and she's in her gosh darn shoes. Great. Sorry to the cleaner who has to clean the floor an extra time because she wouldn't take off her shoes. Hi ma'am, can I help you? EM in broken English.
Yeah, go outside. I want to talk you.
Yep, she said it exactly like that. Understandable. She doesn't speak English. I internally groan, roll my eyes at her back, and follow her out, where ED and D are still standing. I go up to ED and ask what I can do for him, and then comes the phrase that made me thrive. No, not asking to see the manager.
I want to terminate D's classes.
Bingo. As much as I love D, I cannot handle his parents, and for the record, I never once suggested they terminate classes. This was purely out of their own choice, as I've been nothing but cordial, if not pleasant to them. I'll bring SA out to see you through the process. I head back inside and tell SA, who is still eating his lunch, that ED and EM want to cancel D's classes. He stares at me and tells me to tell CW1, since he isn't really authorized to cancel classes. I go to CW1 and tell her about it. Hey CW1, ED wants to cancel D's classes.
Really? Why? Whose student is that?
Mine. I don't know. I guess they've had enough of me. CW1 goes outside to talk to EM and ED, while I go back into my classroom to pack up. I hang around, texting my mum about it, all before finally grabbing my bag and leaving. As I'm heading out of my classroom, CW2 asks how it went. I tell her all about it, and her disdain for ED and EM is as clear as a cloudless day. CW1 comes back inside and looks to CW2.
CW2, please come help me.
Why?
ED wants to terminate classes for D, but this is only his 5th lesson. He wants a full refund back.
Didn't the contract they signed say the fees are non-refundable? Do you want me to come help you? Did you tell them you're the manager?
I just said I'm a teacher.
OP, who did you say I was? I didn't tell them anything. I said I'd find the admin to start the process. Went to SA told me to find you, so I came to you.
Oh, okay, good.
Aren't they aware that most students don't adjust for a few months? So what if the kid can't read perfectly? He's going to need some time to pick it up.
I told them that, but they were adamant about terminating classes. Just come out here and help me.
CW2 in her big mama voice. Alright, I got this. CW2 goes out to the front desk. I ask CW1 what went on outside, and she tells me ED and EM were demanding a full refund, even for the classes they already had. I'd understand wanting a refund for the classes they paid for but didn't have, but demanding a refund for the ones they had? Typical. I ask CW1 to keep me updated on whether ED and EM terminate classes, and that if they do, to let me know if a Sunday 12 to 1 PM class opens, so I don't lose out on my pay. I grab my stuff, shove my earpieces in, and go home. So far, I haven't heard from CW1 over text yet. At least if they don't terminate classes, they'll at least request a new teacher. I love D very much, but his parents drive me crazy. Seems like they drive just about every other teacher crazy. Man, for such a young kid, they take these classes so seriously. Asking questions like, why didn't he color in the other pictures with the crayons? Aren't kids, and really people in general, supposed to learn at their own pace in the things that interest them? Isn't that why schooling doesn't work for so many people? Because it's a very much cookie cutter, trying to make one size fit all, which just never works. I get that they're classes and they're trying to learn particular skills, and if you're paying money, yeah, you want to see results, but learning isn't something that just happens instantly. It takes time. Time and patience, something that an entitled parent never has.
Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.